Shabbat Shalom, and welcome back to the Virtual House Church. It's my blessing to be once again with all of you in this new Shabbat, in this new Virtual House. I see some of you, 53 of you, already connected to the broadcast, so welcome once again. As I have been telling you every week, Virtual House Church is such a blessing. It's such a time that we can enjoy all together, the reading and studying the Word of Yahuwah, and to share some time between us. You know, we are in the dispersion, we are in different places on this world, but having the opportunity to meet each other virtually in this Virtual House Church is such a blessing, because we are longing for this time that we are going to be all together, face to face, enjoying the presence of Yahuwah, enjoying being with one another between us. This is so important because, you know, in these times of trouble, we need to have this feeling in our hearts. We need to have the strength of Yahuwah and the joy of Yahuwah that is bringing the strength. We were studying this in the last few weeks, and you know, now more than ever, is much more needed. So in case any of you is new, I will invite you to visit the Virtual House Church website. Let me put it here in the screen. You know, Virtual House Church was a project that our brother Rob Skive started back on 2012. And since then, he started this project and this blessing to all of us, where he started to collect a lot of information and put it together in this site, virtualhousechurch.com. And there are plenty of so much studies and information and so rich information about from the Word of Yahuwah that is so important for us to go and to take a look here. You know, Virtual House Church, as is said here at the top of the page, is getting back to the basics. The idea is to study the Word of Yahuwah. The idea is to dig deeper on the Word of Yahuwah in order to get understanding and in order to get the wisdom that is coming only from one source, and that source is Yahuwah Elohim Sebaot. And you know, even I can tell you, I have not done it myself, going into all the details that is in the Virtual House Church page. There is so much information that I think is worth enough to take the time and to see what Rob was directed by Yahuwah to collect throughout all these years. And it's not only for new people. You know, we are all of us are in the way of Yahuwah. All of us are trying to learn day by day the truth of the Word of Yahuwah. And I think this site is something amazing in order to start with this approach. And you know, there are multiple things that Rob collected during the time. You know, coming out of Babylon, this is so amazing information that he started to collect here. Even in the book he wrote, is so important information for us to understand that we are living in Babylon, as Daniel and many prophets we see in the scripture. Many of the people of Yahuwah were living in the Babylon in the past. We are living in the spiritual Babylon in these days. And what the Yahuwah has been doing for us is to take us out of Babylon. We are not completely out yet, physically speaking, but it is so wonderful what Yahuwah has been doing for us, that he has been taking us from the world, taking us from Babylon in order to bring us into his kingdom. And here is many information that our brother Rob was collecting throughout the years. And what about Paul? You know, this is so much important information as well, in order to understand what Shaul Paul was teaching in his letters. And you know, this is something that Rob was doing last year, and it was so important for the times that we are living, is defending Mashiach, defending Messiah. I had the chance to take a look in one of those informations, and it is so important for us to be updated with this information. There are so many lies going on in the world today, is that we need to put our feet in the rock that is Yahushua HaMashiach. And here Rob collected so much information about how to defend Messiah, how to understand Messiah in the scriptures. So I invite you all to go to the site, to start digging in the information, because this is what we are being instructed by Yahuwah to look and seek for the truth, to look and seek for his kingdom and his righteousness. And and he is using all of us, and not only few people in his nation, around the world. He is using all of us because we are all part of the body of Mashiach. We have different purposes, and he's using you, he's using me, he's using all of us in order to bring the light of Yahuwah into this world, in order to bring his truth into this world. So we need to use all these resources in order to build ourselves up in the truth of the word of Yahuwah, and start sharing with others, start being those witnesses that we have been called from Yahuwah to be. And in case, this is for new people, but if you are not new, most of us are joining the Virtual House Church week by week. I welcome you once again, and thank you for being with me today. Jake was telling me that he's still not back home, so he's not going to be able to join us today. So we are going to run once again solo here. But as I told you last week, we are not alone. The Ruach HaKodesh and Yahuwah Elohim is with us. And there is no doubt that, he is among us. No matter the distance, his presence is with us. And that's the most important thing to keep in our minds, that Yahuwah is with us. No matter where we are, no matter when it is, no matter how we're feeling, Yahuwah is for us and he is with us. So, we will continue in the week number 2 of the book of Joshua or Yahushua. And I was posting in this channel early today the entire portions, how we are going to study the portions of the book of Joshua. I also asked Karen and Kevin to post this in the different platforms. I think they already did it yesterday. So there you will have, and let me see if I can put it also here in the screen. Just give me a second. I think I have it here. The idea is that, you can prepare for each Shabbat, reading the different portions, how we are going to be studying the book of Joshua. And yes, I have it here. Let me see if I can post this. Just give me a second. And we are going to share the screen. So the idea, as I told you, is that we study the book of Joshua, and here you will see. Let me see if I can increase a bit. So we are going to study the book of Joshua in the 10 parts. We already started the week number 1. And today we're going to start, we are going to study the week number 2. That is going through the chapter 3, verse 1 until the chapter 4, verse 24. And there you can see that we're going to study and we will portion the book of Joshua in the coming weeks. So if you don't have it, I posted in the channel, you will see it. And also Karen and Kevin help us to post this, I think, in Facebook and the Discord server as well. So, book of Joshua is so important in these times because it's referring so much to the times that we are living. I have been telling you is that we are going to cross the Jordan. I don't know if we are going to cross the Jordan literally, Though I believe that most probably most of the stories that we see in the scripture regarding the first Exodus most probably will repeat again in the second Exodus. And why I'm saying this, and we have the time, in Virtual House Church with time, I will share more of this on why I believe that maybe the story is going to repeat itself, that most probably we will cross the Jordan literally. We don't know. And that's why it's so important what we are studying in this book about what happened to that generation, about how they crossed the Jordan, the Jordan River in Hebrew is Jordan. So if you're hearing me to say Jordan so much, I'm referring to the Jordan River. Jordan is the real name in Hebrew. Is that I think we will do exactly the same. Even if we don't do it literally, physically, we are in the moment to cross the Jordan spiritually. Yahushua HaMashiach, he has been doing so a marvelous and great work throughout the years, is that, we are at that point. I don't know how much time is left. I don't know if it's just days, months, years. We don't know. But I do believe that all of us have in our hearts the feeling that the time to cross the Jordan and to inherit the land, as that generation they did it, is very soon to come. And as I saw Daniel saying, is that yes, I do believe the same, Daniel, is that it's going to be so exciting if we literally and physically cross the Jordan, because it's going to be like living in our own experiences what we have been reading and studying throughout all these years. But Yahuwah knows. So we have many things to study in this chapter, in these two chapters. I have to be honest with you, like always, that 2 or 3 hours ago I was totally empty. I didn't know what to share, and I started to read again the portions, and there was something that a parallel so beautiful that Yahuwah showed me, that I will reserve this to the end of the study. Just be patient with me, but I think it's worth enough. And it deserved to reserve this to the end of the study today. So we're going to start, and we have been doing it in the last week, since we don't have Parsha in 60 seconds. We are going to share with you a song that is one of the songs that I like as well. And then we are going to pray, and we are going to start the study. So let me put the camera and the screen here. And here we go.
עמידנו מלכנו לחיים, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, כי אל שומרנו אתה. כי אל שומרנו מצילנו אתה, אל מלך חנון ורחום, שומר עמו ישראל לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני. ותקננו
So, you know, the song is so the lyrics are so important sometimes. You know, not only the melody. And
I made this
I have
song
to
in 2 minutes using my
I
MIDI
have to
pack.
I have to tell you is that you know sometimes we are trying to look for a song that is related to the portion, and most of the time we don't find that type of song. And we were discussing with my wife earlier today, just looking for some music, and she was telling me that, but this song we're looking for another one, and she said this song doesn't have any relation with the portion. And you know, I was listening to this one that I just shared with you, and I said, you know, I'm gonna put this one. And it wasn't. We didn't see any relation to the portion. And now that I'm looking into the lyrics and listening while I'm sharing it with you, it's so well connected to what we are gonna study and share today. You know what I saw in the lyrics, and then this is important. It's something that should be engraved in our hearts. Is that Yahuwah keeps and protect his people Israel forever. Baruch atah Yahuwah. Blessed are you, Yahuwah. And this is something so important for our days, is that he is keeping and protecting his entire people, his entire nation, Israel. And we need to have this in our mind all the time, because he is for us. And if he is for us, nothing it is in this world that we have to fear. So, you know, let's pray to Yahuwah that he will guide us today, that the Ruach will speak to me and will speak to you, that he will guide us in giving us his wisdom. So I will invite you to close your eyes, lift up your hands to the heaven, and let's pray to Allah. Yahuwah Sebaot, Abba Kadosh, Abba Tov. We give you all to thou thanks to you, because you are giving us once again the opportunity to keep your Shabbat, to be gathered together, at least virtually, in this virtual house church, with the intention and the desire in our hearts to be with you, to be echad with you and with our brothers and sisters around the world. We give all the thanks to you, Yahuwah, because no matter the distance we are, we can feel your presence in our heart, and we can feel your love in our hearts towards one another. Thank you, Abba, because in you we are echad through Yahushua HaMashiach. And in our hearts is the desire to serve you, Abba, with all our strength. That no matter the difficulties we are going through, no matter the darkness that is around us, no matter the fear that the world is trying to push in us, we know that you are with us. We know that our feet are in you, our rock. And we pray to you, Abba, in this moment, asking for your mercy and your compassion, that you can be in us, that you can send your Ruach, you can pour out your Ruach in us, because we are in need of your power, we are in need of your presence. As Moshe told you, Abba, without your presence we don't want to move on, because without your presence we are nothing. And we ask for your presence to be with us in this virtual house church. And not only today, every day of our lives, especially in the time that we are living. Because in your presence is when we find the peace, shalom. In your presence is where we find your miracles and your wonders. Abba, we ask you in this moment for any of your children in the world that is going through sickness. We pray for harmony, Abba, that you can go and do a miracle in her. We are praying for our sister Annie as well, for her to have the strength in this moment. And we know that you are the Elohim of miracles, and we believe in what is written in your word, and we believe that you can do anything. We ask you for harmony, that you can heal her, that you can restore his health. And not only for her, also for anybody of your children that is going through some difficult situations, that you can go and be with them because we need you more than ever, that you can heal the sick, that you can restore the shalom in the hearts of any of your children. We ask for Sheila, that you can comfort her heart. You can show her the way that she has to go through, because we know that you are with her in the same way that you are with all of us. We ask you for your presence, Abba. We ask you for your blessings. We ask you for your wisdom and your truth. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. Amen. So, where we start? Let's start sharing the scripture. So, let me put the book of Joshua, chapter 3, verse 1 to the end, the 17. So, what we're going to do, this is not a long portion. So we're going to read it entirely, and then I will start sharing with you some of the points that I found interesting, what I felt in my heart when I was reading this. And let's see how it was. So it says the following. And Yahushua rose early in the morning, and they set out from Shittim and came to the Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and stayed there before they passed over. And it came to be, after 3 days, that the officers went into the midst of the camp, and they commanded the people, saying, when you see the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah your Elohim, and the priest, the Levites, bearing it, then you shall set out from your place and follow it. Only keep a distance between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure. Do not come near it, so that you know which way to go, for you have not passed over this way before. And Yahushua said to the people, set yourselves apart, for tomorrow Yahuwah is doing wonders in your midst. And Yahushua spoke to the priest, saying, take up the ark of the covenant and pass over before the people. So they took up the ark of the covenant and went before the people. And Yahuwah said to Yahushua, this day I begin to make you great before the eyes of all Israel, so that they know that I am with you as I was with Moshe. And you command the priests who bear the ark of the covenant, saying, when you come to the edge of the water of the Jordan, stand in the Jordan. And Yahushua said to the children of Israel, come near and hear the words of Yahuwah your Elohim. And Yahushua said, by this you shall know that the living El is in your midst, and that he is certainly driving out from before you the Canaanites, the Hittites, and the Hivites, and the Perizzites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Jebusites. See, the ark of the covenant of the master of all the earth is passing over before you into the Jordan. And now, take for yourselves 12 men from the tribes of Israel, 1 man from every tribe. And it shall be, as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests, who bear the ark of Yahuwah, the master of all the earth, come to rest in the waters of the Jordan, that the waters of the Jordan are cut off, the waters that come down from upstream and stand as a heap. And it came to be, when the people set out from their tents to pass over the Jordan, with the priest bearing the ark of the covenant before the people, and as those bearing the ark came to the Jordan, and the feet of the priests bearing the ark dipped in the edge of the water, now the Jordan overflows all its banks during all the time of harvest, that the waters which came down from upstream stood still and rose in a heap very far away at Adam, the city that is beside Zarethan. And the waters going down into the sea of the Arabah, the salt sea, were completely cut off, and the people passed over it opposite Jericho. And the priest, bearing the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah, stood firm on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan, and all Israel passed over on dry ground until all the nations had completely passed over the Jordan. You know, such an amazing picture when we read all this passage. You know, it's impossible for not to restrain our mind, to put pictures in our heads, imagining what happened all the time, to see, you know, the priest bearing the ark, going to the river, you know, the river being cut off in order for them to cross in dry land. You know, it's such an amazing picture that every time that I read this, I have in my mind that I'm wondering how it's going to happen with us, how we're going to see exactly the same things, and how we're going to see the marvelous and the awesome hand of Yahuwah doing so many great things for us, to take us from the four corners of the earth in order to guide us to the promised land. So, you know, when we read the verse by verse, there are few things that was highlighted in front of my eyes that I want to share with you. So when we read the verse 1 and 2, and it says the following, and Yahushua rose early in the morning, and they set out from Shittim and came to the Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and I stayed there before they passed over. And it came to be after 3 days that the officers went into the midst of the camp. You know, I was remembering what we were sharing last week, that, by the way, just to put a parenthesis, it was a marathon what we did last week. And, you know, it was so a blessing to see some of the comments that some of you or most of you got this heart so full of joy after what we were sharing last week. Because, you know, here at home, we got exactly the same feeling. When we finished the last week portion, you know, my heart was so big inside me that I couldn't contain it, and my wife was exactly the same. So reading that it was happening the same to you is just to give thanks to Yahuwah and praise to Him that He was with us last week, and there's no doubt He is with us today. So if you remember last week, we were studying the first few chapters. And we saw how Yahuwah was doing a marvelous work by the hand of Joshua ben Nun, Yahushua ben Nun. And you know, when we go back to the chapter 2, to the last verse of the chapter 2, there is an amazing statement here, saying the following. And they said to Yahushua, truly Yahuwah has given all the land into our hands, and also all the inhabitants of the land have melted away because of us. You know, why I'm bringing this to the study today is that before, you know, with everything that happened and we studied last week, we saw how Yahuwah gave the confirmation to Yahushua, to the two spies, and even to Rahab and to all the children of Israel that they were waiting to cross the Jordan. Yahuwah gave the conviction and the belief that the land was already given in their hands by Yahuwah, that their enemies were afraid of them. And even in this scenario, you know, something happened. And this is something that, why I felt that I am bringing this to share with you. Because, you know, it's been 2,000 years approximately since Yahushua was here on earth. And we are reading throughout all the scriptures that the amazing promises of Yahuwah. We are reading throughout the scriptures the amazing prophecies that Yahuwah gave through their servants, His servants, that is going to happen in these last days. We see throughout the scriptures and through the compassion of Yahuwah, we have been given the understanding and the wisdom to see that we are part of that people. We are part of Israel. And since we are part of Israel through the hand of Yahushua HaMashiach, we are part of the promises and we are part of the inheritance. It's, to my mind and to my eyes, is exactly the same that we see in the last verse of the chapter 2. They knew that Yahuwah gave them the land. They knew that Yahuwah put fear on the hearts of their enemies. But what we see in this chapter 3, in the verse 1 and 2, is that they didn't conquer the land immediately. Even what happened is that they moved from one location, from Shittim to the border of the Jordan. And even they needed to wait for 3 days before crossing the Jordan. So when we see these parallels to what Yahushua has been doing for us all these years, we see that, we have been waiting in the same way that that generation was waiting in order to cross the Jordan and to inherit the promises. And it's not something that is there because of something, is that it was 3 days. Last week we were chatting about, I was sharing my view on this, that there is so much correlation about the number 3 in the scriptures. And we saw in the book of the prophet Hosea, how he's saying in the chapter 6, if I remember well, that in the 3rd day, he will give us life. So, why I'm bringing this, and this is what I felt. Sometimes when we think that it's taking too long, when we think that we don't know the times, because we don't know the times, we can have some certainties, but we don't know exactly the time. It's the moment that we need to remember what happened to this generation as we are studying today. They didn't conquer the land immediately. They didn't cross the Jordan immediately, in the same way that we are not crossing the Jordan immediately. But even though that they were waiting for so much, in the same way that we are waiting for so much, their conviction was so strong in their hearts that they didn't doubt. And it's exactly the same that we need to put in our hearts, because Yahuwah has a time for everything. In the book of Kohelet, it's saying all over the place that the Yahuwah has set a time for everything. Everything has a defined time by Elohim. And, even in the book of Peter, 2 Peter, let me share this with you. And if we go to the book of 2 Peter, Kephabet in Hebrew, chapter 3, verse 1 to 9, it says the following. This is now, beloved ones, the second letter I write to you, in which I stirred up your sincere mind to remember the words previously spoken by the set-apart prophets, and of the commands of the Master and Savior spoken by your emissaries. Knowing this first, that mockers shall come in the last days with mocking, walking according to their own lusts, and saying, what is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all continues as from the beginning of creation. And we see this increasing and increasing even more in our days. People that don't believe in the written word of Yahuwah. People that don't believe in Elohim. People that believes that everything was created by an explosion, a Big Bang. That they believe in evolution. And, they're mocking all of us that we decided to put our trust in Yahuwah. And we see, all over the place that the persecution and the many things that the people in the world are doing for those of us that we believe in the word of Yahuwah. And here we see exactly in the words of Peter, prophesying of what was going to happen in these days. People saying, what is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all continues as from the beginning of creation. So they don't believe, you have been waiting for 2,000 years. So why you are waiting for? Nothing will happen. And keep in mind what we are studying in the book of Joshua. It was something similar. They didn't cross the Jordan. The difference was that they had the conviction. The difference was that the nations of the world were in fear of the people of Yahuwah. And I was telling you last week is amazing, when we're reading the book of Samuel, that everybody was in fear of everybody. But that's the difference that we need to make in our times, that our fear needs to be to Yahuwah Elohim, not to other people. And if we fear in Yahuwah Elohim Sebaot, he will do exactly the same that he did to the nations, to the enemies of Yahuwah. He will put his fear on their hearts. With what purpose? In order for them to believe in him. That's the purpose. So there's so much correlation to what's going on that we don't need to be afraid. We don't need to doubt. We need to put our conviction even stronger than ever in our hearts that the written word of Yahuwah and his promises are so true that we need to wait. We need to wait for him in order for those promises and the prophecies to be fulfilled. So let's continue reading what is saying here until the verse 9. For they choose to have this hidden from them. And this is so interesting, the people of the world are decided not to believe, not to see. That the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of whatever, and in the water by the word of Elohim, through which the world at that time was destroyed, being flooded with water, and the present heavens and the earth are treasured up by the same word, being kept for fire, to a day of judgment and destruction of wicked men. But beloved ones, let not this one matter be hidden from you, that with Yahuwah one day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. Yahuwah is not slow in regard to the promise, as some count slowness, but is patient toward us, no wishing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. So he's so compassionate that we have been waiting for these years because he wants everybody to come to repentance. He wants to save everybody. And this is so correlated to what we were hearing in the song and what we see in this portion, that he is protecting his entire people, Israel. And he's waiting for his entire people, Israel, to be saved. And even in the words of Peter, if we go to the book of Acts, chapter 3, verse 19 to 21, he was saying the following. Repent therefore and turn back for the blotting out of your sins, in order that times of refreshing might come from the presence of the Master, and that he sends Yahushua Messiah, pre-appointed for you, whom heavens needs to receive until the times of restoration of all matters, of which Elohim spoke through the mouth of all his set-apart prophets since of old. So, he's saying here is that Yahushua is in heaven, waiting for the proper time. And what's the proper time? And this is so amazing and important. Until the times of the restoration of all matters. There is a time, and I think the restoration of all matters is coming to an end. There's no doubt in my heart. Again, we don't know when it's going to happen, but there's no doubt we are in those times. And only then, Yahushua will come back in order to guide us to cross the Jordan. So let's not lose faith. Let's not lose conviction. In the same way that they were patiently waiting to cross the Jordan, we need to continue waiting to cross the Jordan as well. So coming back to the book of Joshua, and this is something so beautiful what we see here in the chapter 3. Because after the 3 days, we see what's happening here in the verse 3 to 4. And they commanded the people, saying, who commanded the people were the commanders, basically, through the mouth of Yahushua, receiving the instruction directly from Yahuwah. And it's important and interesting when we see this commandment and this instruction being repeated all over the place in these 2 chapters. And I think this is something beyond of our understanding, why this is being repeated so much. And then maybe what we're going to share here is going to give us some light of why it's so repetitive. So it says, and they commanded the people, saying, when you see the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah your Elohim, and the priests and the Levites bearing it, then you shall set out from your place and follow it. Only keep a distance between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure. Do not come near it, so that you know which way to go, for you have not passed over this way before. You know, Yahuwah set one of the most important items in his tabernacle in order to be a sign, in order to be a banner, in order to lead the way for the people. And you know, he did it by the hands of the priests and the Levites. They were the first one going in the way. They were the first one to stand up in the river in order to guide and lead the people in a way that is written here that they have not passed over in the past. It was something that was unknown for them. It was a way that they didn't saw in the past. It was something totally new for them. And I'm wondering, before sharing that this is something that I'm feeling in my heart now, I'm wondering what has been happening to all of us throughout these years. Yahushua, in the same way that Moses, and we study this in the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, is offering us and showing to us the existence of two ways. And he's inviting us to go through the narrow path that in his mouth and his words, in the same way of the words of Moses, is the path to life, not the path to death. And it's a path that is unknown for us. It was something that was totally unknown for us. And then even today, no matter we have been receiving understanding through all the years, and we know what's coming according to what is written in the word of Yahuwah, it's something that is unknown to us. But in the same way that we see here in this portion, that the children of Israel, they were going to go through a path and a way that they didn't know, and they got a sign, and they got the Ark of the Covenant of Yahuwah to lead them on the way. We have exactly the same guidance today. We have a banner, an amazing sign of Yahuwah that is leading us on the way, and this is Yahushua HaMashiach. That we don't need to be afraid because we don't know what's coming. We don't need to be afraid because we don't know the way forward. Because in the same way that the children of Israel had the Ark of the Covenant to guide them on the way they need to walk, we have Yahushua HaMashiach with the Ruach HaKodesh guiding us and showing us the way we need to move and the way we need to walk. So, you know, Yahushua said so important things about this. You know, we see here what was the importance and what was the purpose to have the Ark of the Covenant of Yahuwah. It is written in the verse 4. It says, only keep a distance between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure. Do not come near it. For what purpose? So that you know which way to go. The purpose of having the Ark of the Covenant at the beginning, in the same way that is written in the Torah, that you know the column of fire and the column of the cloud, and even the messenger of Yahuwah was leading the people of Israel throughout this immense wilderness, leading them on the way, was exactly the same purpose. The Ark of the Covenant being front, leading the people on the way. So, what we see and the correlation here in the words of Mashiach. Let's go to the book of Matthew, Matityahu, chapter 16, verse 24 to 26. Yahushua said this to the Talmidim, the disciples. Talmidim is the plural word for disciples. Talmid is singular, Talmidim is the plural. So Yahushua said to the Talmidim, to the disciples, if anyone wishes to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his stake and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life shall lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake shall find it. For what is a man profited if he gains all the world and loses his own life? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his life? So we see Yahushua saying here, in the same way that he was talking and calling his disciples, follow me and you will become fishers of men. He is calling us to follow him. He is calling us to follow his way. And this is so important because it's totally correlated to what we see here with the Ark of the Covenant. I will bring something just in a minute, just for you to see what's the parallel here. It's so amazing that the Yahushua is telling us that we need to take our stake and to follow him. He is the way. You know, if we go to the book of John, Yahochanan in Hebrew, chapter 14, verse 1 to 6, it says the following: Let not your heart be troubled. Believe in Elohim, believe also in me. You know, we were discussing just a minute ago that our heart needs to be with the conviction that we are going to cross the Jordan. Our heart doesn't need to be troubled. You know, it's amazing how Yahweh is connecting things. And believe me, I haven't seen it even when I was preparing this to share, how everything is connected. So believe in Elohim, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many staying places. And if not, I would have told you, I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I shall come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, you might be too. And where I go, you know, and the way you know. Thomas said to him, Master, we do not know where you are going. How are we able to know the way? Yahushua said to him, I am the way, and the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. You know, we see here Yahushua giving us and strengthen our conviction. Even on times that we don't know the way. In the same way that Thomas was asking him, how are we able to know the way? Yahushua is saying, I am the way. Through me you will come back to the Father. In the same way that we see the Ark of the Covenant showing the way to the people of Israel, for them to know what was the way for them to cross the Jordan, what was the way they needed to go in order to inherit the promises. They could take their own ways. If they were willing to follow their own understanding, they were going to mistake. Maybe they were going to go to the right or to the left. But that's why Yahuwah put the Ark of the Covenant in front of them for them to see what was the way they needed to walk. In the same way that Yahushua is showing us the way we need to walk in order to get back and go back to the Father. And you know, there are multiple passages in the scripture, in the prophets. And I just want to share with you two of them that we see, you know, the people of Israel following the Ark of the Covenant being the sign for them to follow, is that we are being called also to follow the sign, to follow the way. And who is that sign? You know, we see Yahushua speaking that we need to follow him. But let's see what the prophet Yeshayahu, Isaiah, talk about. Let's go to the book of Isaiah, Yeshayahu in Hebrew, chapter 11, verse 10 to 16. And we know this entire chapter is talking about the root of Jesse, is talking about Mashiach. So let's see what it's saying in the verse 10 to 16. It says, and in that day there shall be a root of Yeshai, this is Jesse, standing as a banner to the people. A banner, you know, it's kind of a flag a banner standing for the people, and to him the nations shall seek, and his rest shall be esteemed. And it shall be in that day that Yahuwah sets his hand again a second time to recover the remnant of his people who are left from Ashur and from Mizraim and from Pathros and from Cush, from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. And he shall raise a banner for the nations and gather the outcast of Israel and assemble the dispersed of Yehudah from the four corners of the earth. And the envy of Ephraim shall turn aside, and the adversaries of Yehudah be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Yehudah, and Yehudah not trouble Ephraim. But they shall fly down upon the shoulders of the Philistines, toward the west. Together they plunder the people of the east, their hand stretching forth on Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall be subject to them. And Yahuwah shall put under the ban the tongue of the sea of Mizraim, and he shall wave his hand over the river with the might of his Ruach, his spirit, and shall strike it in the seven streams, and shall cause men to tread it in sandals. And there shall be a highway for the remnant of his people, those left from Ashur, and as it was for Israel in the day when they came up. He came out from the land of Mizraim. So, what's the sign that Yahuwah has set for all of us? What's the banner that Yahuwah has set for the entire world? This is the root of Yishai. This is Yahushua HaMashiach, the rightful king, the rightful Melech. He is that banner. He is the sign that he's showing us the way, in the same way that the Ark of the Covenant was showing the way. And so it's so amazing, that even he's relating through the words and the mouth of Yeshayahu Isaiah, that he will set a highway for the remnant of his people. We will see that way. And who is that way? Is Yahushua HaMashiach. All of us are waiting for that moment, because everything that is talking about here in this passage is about the second Exodus. And all of us are waiting for that moment that we are going to be gathered all together from the four corners of the earth. And the same thing we see in the chapter 49 of the book of Isaiah, chapter 22 and 23, saying the following: Thus said the Master Yahuwah, see, I lift my hand up to the nations, and set up my banner for the peoples, and they shall bring your sons in their arms, and your daughters carried on their shoulders, and sovereigns shall be your foster fathers, and their sovereignesses your nursing mothers. They bow down to you with their faces to the earth, and lick up the dust of your feet, and you shall know that I am Yahuwah. Those who wait for me shall not be ashamed. Those of us that were waiting for him without doubt, with faith, with belief, with emunah, with conviction, we are not going to be ashamed. We are going to see the sign. We are going to be able to see the ark. We are going to be able to see that flag, that banner, in order to follow in the right way. And this is so all connected and so interesting, that even when Yahushua was talking about the end times, he was speaking exactly the same. So let's go to the book of Matthew, Matityahu, chapter 24, verse 27 to 31. So it says, For as the lightning comes from the east and shines to the west, so also shall the coming of the sons of Adam be. For whatever the dead body is, there the vultures shall be gathered together. And immediately after the distress of those days, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give its light, and the stars shall fall from the heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And listen, and the sign of Ben Adam, of the son of Adam, shall appear in the heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth shall mourn, and they shall see the Ben Adam, the son of Adam, coming on the clouds of the heaven with power and much steam. And he shall send his messengers with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his chosen ones from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. So we see the sign of the Ben Adam, the sign of Yahushua at the end times. He is the sign. And when we see that sign, we are going to be gathered from the four corners of the earth. He, like the Ark of the Covenant, is that sign showing us the way to follow, the way to cross the Jordan. And, you know, there is so much correlation, and we see this in Torah and in the words of Paul Shaul, correlation between the Ark of the Covenant and Yahushua HaMashiach himself. If we go to the book of Numbers, chapter 7, verse 89. We see the following. And when Moshe went into the tent of the appointment, this is the tabernacle, to speak with him, he heard the voice of one speaking to him from above, the lid of atonement that was on the ark of the witness. Listen, from between the two cherubim. Thus he spoke to him. The presence of Yahuwah was between the two cherubims in the ark of the covenant. And from there it's written here, Yahuwah himself was speaking to Moshe. You know, as a friend is talking to a friend. It's written in another place of the word. So the presence of Yahuwah was resting in the Ark of the Covenant between the cherubim. And we see two additional witnesses in the word that is talking about that. Let's go to the book of Tehillim. This is Psalms. Chapter 80. Verse 1. It says the following. Give ear, O shepherd of Israel, who leads Joseph like a flock, who dwells between the cherubim, shine forth. Who dwells between the cherubim, shine forth. The presence of Yahuwah was dwelling between the cherubim in the Ark of the Covenant. Let's see the next witness. This is in the book of Isaiah, Yeshayahu, chapter 37, verse 16. And this is the prayer of Hezekiah. You know, it says in the starting in the 15, and Hezekiah prayed to Yahuwah, saying, O Yahuwah Sebaot, Yahuwah of hosts, Elohim of Israel, listen to this, the one who dwells between the cherubim. You are Elohim, you alone, of all the reigns of the earth. You have made the heavens and the earth. So why I'm bringing this up? Yahuwah was leading the way of his people. When we see the Ark of the Covenant, and we understand all these passages that Yahuwah, his presence, was dwelling between the cherubims, we can understand that was Yahuwah leading on the way. And you know, in the words of Shaul, in the words of Paul, we go to the book of Colossians, we see an amazing revelation. And I want to read this entire passage to you, starting in the verse 1, going to the verse 20. It says the following. Shaul, an emissary of Yahushua Messiah, by the desire of Elohim, and Timothy, our brother, to the Kadoshim, the set-apart ones in Colossus, and true brothers in Messiah, favor to you and peace from Elohim, our Father, and the Master Yahushua Messiah. We give thanks to the Elohim and Father of our Master Yahushua Messiah, praying always for you, having heard of your belief in Yahushua HaMashiach, and of your love for all the Kadoshim, the set-apart ones, because of the expectation that is laid up for you in the heavens, of which you heard before in the word of the truth of the good news, which has come to you, as also in all the world it is bearing fruit and growing, as also among you, since the day you heard and knew the favor of Elohim in truth, as you also learned from Epaphras, our beloved fellow servant, who is a true servant of Mashiach on your behalf, who also declared to us your love in the Ruach, in the Spirit. That is also why we, from the day we heard, have not ceased praying for you and asking that you be filled with the knowledge of His desire in all wisdom and spiritual understanding. And let me put a pause here. It's so beautiful to read how Shaul Paul was writing to the assemblies. Just to read this, that we need to pray without ceasing for all our brothers and sisters, in the same way that he was instructing the assemblies back then, is something that we need to do in these times. We are connected and we are united through the Ruach HaKodesh. And every time that we pray for one another, the Ruach is helping us in that prayer. So Yahuwah is listening to our prayers for our brothers and sisters. Asking them to be filled by the knowledge of His desire in all wisdom and spiritual understanding. And this is more than ever is what we need. So in the same way that He's instructing, we need to take these words for us in our days, that we need to pray without ceasing for the entire assembly of Yahuwah, in order to get that wisdom, in order to get that spiritual understanding, in order to discern the times that we are living, in order to discern what Yahuwah wants us to do. Let's continue reading. It says to walk worthily of the Master, pleasing all, bearing fruit in every good work, and increasing in the knowledge of Elohim, being empowered with all power according to the might of His esteem, for all endurance and patience with joy. This is talking to us. These words and this letter is prepared for us because of the times we are living. Giving thanks to the Father who has made us fit to share in the inheritance of the Kadoshim, the set apart ones in the light, who has delivered us from the authority of darkness and transferred us into the reign of the Son of His love, in whom we have redemption through His blood, the forgiveness of sins, who is the likeness of the invisible Elohim, the firstborn of all creation, because in Him were created all that in the heavens and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or rulerships or principalities or authorities. All have been created through Him and for Him. And He is before all, and in Him all hold together. And He is the head of the body, the assembly, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that He might become the one who is first in all. This is an amazing description of Mashiach, but I want you to put attention to what's coming in the verse 19 and 20. It says the following: because in Him all the completeness was well pleased to dwell, and through Him to completely restore to favor all unto Himself, whether on earth or in the heavens, having made peace through the blood of His stake. What I'm talking and what Shaul is talking about here is that the entire completeness of Elohim was well pleased to dwell in Yahushua HaMashiach. Keep in mind, the presence of Yahuwah was dwelling among the cherubim in the Ark of the Covenant. We see here in the words of Shaul Paul that the completeness of Elohim was well pleased to dwell in Mashiach. And he's repeating the same thing in the same book, in the chapter 2, verse 6 to 10. It says the following: therefore, as you accepted Yahushua HaMashiach the Master, walk in Him, having been rooted and built up in Him, and established in the belief, as you were taught, overflowing in it with thanksgiving. See to it that no one makes a prey of you through philosophy and empty deceit, according to the tradition of men, according to the elementary matters of the world, and not according to Mashiach. Because in him, and listen to this, because in him dwells all the completeness of Elohimness bodily. And you have been made complete in him, who is the head of all principalities and authority. The presence and the completeness of Elohim dwelling in Yahushua. In the same way that his presence was dwelling between the two cherubims. Can you see how the Ark of the Covenant and Yahushua HaMashiach are so much united and correlated? That in the same way that the presence of Yahuwah was dwelling in the Ruach of the Ark of the Covenant, and he was dwelling as well in the body of Yahushua, leading the way to the people of Yahuwah. So for me, this is something really amazing. So let's continue reading the book of Joshua. Let's go to the chapter 3, verse 5. So it says, and Yahushua said to the people, set yourselves apart, for tomorrow Yahuwah is doing wonders in your midst. You know, and this is so interesting when we think in different passages on the word of Yahuwah, that when they were going to receive the 10 words in the Har Sinai, in the Mount of Sinai, you know, they needed to set themselves apart in order to be prepared to meet his Elohim, their Elohim. You know, and we see other examples as well, that we are being called to be set apart. And this is so prophetic in my eyes, that Yahushua is saying to the people, set yourself apart, because tomorrow Yahuwah is going to do wonders between you, among you. So sometimes, you know, we're so interested to see the signs and the wonders of Yahuwah Elohim that we forget to go back one step and understand that for those signs and wonders to happen, that there's something more important to do before, is to be set apart for Yahuwah. And this is written, you know, it's exactly what he's saying here, Yahushua ben Nun, is that in order to see the wonders that Yahuwah will do among the people tomorrow, that we need to be set apart. And, you know, we see Yahuwah himself talking to us when we were studying the different portions of Torah. Let's go there. Let's go to the book of Leviticus, Vayikra in Hebrew, chapter 19. Verse 1 and verse 2. It says, and Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to all the congregation of the children of Israel, and say to them, be set apart, for I, Yahuwah, your Elohim, am set apart. Yahuwah has been always asking us to be set apart, to be special, to be Kodesh, in the same way that he is Kodesh, to be a peculiar people. And you know, sometimes we don't understand what it means and how we are able to be Kodesh. And there are multiple passages in the scripture that is helping us to understand what it means and how we are able to be Kodesh. So let's go to the same book, Vayikra, Leviticus, chapter 20. Let's read the verse 7 and 8. It says, and you shall set yourself apart, and shall be set apart, for I am Yahuwah your Elohim, and you shall guard my laws and do them. I am Yahuwah who sets you apart. You know, being set apart means keeping and guarding the Torah of Yahuwah, keeping his covenant, keeping and guarding his commandments. You know, that's the way that he is going to set us apart if we follow his commandments. I think there is an additional passage here, if I have my notes here. It's also telling us why. Let's go to the verse 26. It says, and you shall be set apart to me, for I, Yahuwah, am set apart, and have separated you from the peoples to be mine. You know, He has chosen us to be a special people. Being a special people by keeping His commandment and His Torah and His covenant, we are going to be set apart as He is set apart. And, even Shaul, Paul, in the book of Romans, is talking to us about the same thing, how to be set apart. And this is well connected to many things that we have been discussing in the last few weeks. Let's go to the chapter 6 of Romans, chapter 19 to 23. It says the following: I speak as a man because of the weakness of your flesh. For even as you did present your members as servants of uncleanness and of lawlessness, resulting in lawlessness, so now present your members as servants of righteousness, resulting in set apartness. So, we know that lawlessness is breaking Torah. That's the definition of sin. Now we need to present our members as servants of righteousness. Is the opposite of sin. Resulting in what? In Kodeshah, in set apartness. So how we are going to be able to be set apart? By being servants of righteousness. Seek first the kingdom of Yahuwah and His righteousness. The righteousness of the kingdom of Yahuwah reflected on the way of righteousness, the narrow path, the way of the commandment of Yahuwah, the way of the truth of Yahuwah, the way of the covenant of Yahuwah. So even this is so well reflected in the book of Isaiah, chapter 35. Let's go there now. Yeshayahu, chapter 35. We're going to read this all together because it's connected even to the sign, to the banner, to the second Exodus, to the way that we need to follow. And it says the following: let the wilderness and the dry place be glad for them, and let the desert rejoice, and blossom as the rose. It blossoms much and rejoices, even with joy and singing. The stem of Lebanon shall be given to it, the excellence of Carmel and Sharon. They shall see the stem of Yahuwah, the excellency of our Elohim. Strengthen the weak hands and make firm the weak knees. This is what we need to do today. Strengthen any weak hands. Make firm our knees. Is the preparation for what's coming. Is the preparation for the restoration of all things. So we need to strengthen ourselves in these times. Say to those with anxious heart, be strong. Do not fear. See, your Elohim comes with vengeance, with the recompense of Elohim. He is coming to save you. Engrave those words in your heart because He's talking to us in our days today. He is coming to save us. Then the eye of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf be opened. Then the lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the dumb sing. Because waters shall burst forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. And the parched ground shall become a pool, and the thirsty land springs of water in the home of jackals, where each lay grass with reeds and rushes. And there shall be a highway. You remember we saw also in the book of Isaiah about the highway for the remnant of Yahuwah. Here is talking again about the highway. There shall be a highway and a way, and it shall be called the way of set apartness, the way of Kodeshah. The unclean does not pass over it, but it is for those who walk the way, and no fools wander on it. No lion is there, nor any ravenous beast go up on it. It is not found there, but the redeemed shall walk there, and the ransomed of Yahuwah shall return and enter Sion with singing, with everlasting joy on their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and singing shall flee away. We see Yahushua ben Nun telling the people to set apart themselves, to prepare themselves in order to see the wonders of Yahuwah, the wonders that Yahuwah will do for them in order to cross the Jordan and inherit the promises, in order to go to Sion or Zion. is the same calling for us that we are expecting for the second Exodus. Yahuwah, through Yahushua HaMashiach, showing us the way of Kodeshah, of set apartness, in order to teach us, to prepare ourselves for that moment. We have been learning, and He has been teaching us for so long His truth. He has been teaching us for so long His Kodeshah, His set apartness. He has been teaching us for so long His righteousness and the narrow path, with the whole purpose for us to be able to be prepared for that time, in order to be prepared to meet our Elohim, in order to be prepared to walk in the way of Kodeshah and the way of righteousness. It's up to us to decide if we want to be prepared for those times of restoration. It's up to us to be prepared as the wise virgins for the coming of that sign and that banner that's going to act in the same way that we see in this portion, in the form of the Ark of the Covenant, showing us the way in order to cross the Jordan. So we need to prepare ourselves, starting first here in our heart. And when we change our mind, when we change our heart, and we give our heart to Yahuwah, everything else around us, externally or even in our environment, will change. So, wonders connected, being set apart. I remember once I was discussing with my dad, and we were saying, why we're not able to see in these times so many miracles as we read in the scriptures. Why we are not able to see those signs that we see happening throughout the entire word of Yahuwah. And I remember we were discussing is that the people of Yahuwah, that the Yahuwah used back then, the servants of Yahuwah, they were so close to Him, and they were walking in this way of Kodeshah, this way of set apartness, that if we're not walking in the same way, in the same conditions, how Yahuwah will use us, how Yahuwah will reveal and manifest those wonders and signs in our times. Everything is connected in the word of Yahuwah. And I was telling you last week is that we need to prepare ourselves, because He will pour out His Ruach HaKodesh. The Ruach is within us. But it is written in the last times, we are going to receive the fullness of the Ruach. But in order to do that, we need to walk in righteousness. We need to walk in Kodeshah, in set apartness. We have been receiving by Him all this understanding throughout the years. It's here in the heart that we need to make the decision to walk in it and to follow the steps of Yahushua HaMashiach. But, the signs and the wonders will follow us. This is what Yahushua said. But we need to be careful. And I was sharing this with you last week as well, and I'm feeling to share this with you once again. We need to be careful not to follow the signs, not to follow the wonders, because it's the opposite. The signs and the wonders will follow us if we're walking in righteousness and in Kodeshah. Not the opposite. Because if we do the opposite and we follow the signs and the wonders, and we are looking for the signs and the wonder, instead of looking and seeking first the righteousness and the Kodeshah of the kingdom of Yahuwah, we can be deceived. We can be deceived. And this is exactly, what is written in the chapter 24, verse 24 of Matthew, that is going to happen at the end times. It says in the words of Yahushua HaMashiach, "For false messiahs and false prophets shall arise, and they shall show great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the chosen ones." The chosen ones are even in danger to be deceived. How to avoid that? To be deceived, like it is written here. The same Mashiach is telling us how to discern in order to avoid being deceived. And this is in the same book, in the chapter 7 of the book of Matthew, chapter 22 to 23. And this is something that we have been listening all over the place and always. But this is something that we need to use in order to discern the times that we are living. It says, many shall say to me in that day, Master, Master, have we not prophesied in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and done many mighty works in your name? And then I shall declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work lawlessness, you who break the Torah of Yahuwah. So the only way to let the Ruach work within us and to be a servant in the hands of Yahuwah, and that the signs and wonders follow us, is only if we follow the way of Yahuwah and we follow the steps of Yahushua. If we follow the righteousness of the kingdom of Yahuwah that is connected to the covenant and the commandments of Yahuwah. How we avoid to be deceived if we see signs and wonders, but those signs and wonders are not connected to the righteousness of the kingdom of Yahuwah and to the Torah of Yahuwah. You know, it's not me, it's not us. We're saying that this is a deceitfulness. It's Yahushua HaMashiach that is saying to those breaking Torah, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work lawlessness, you who break the Torah of Yahuwah. So, you know, what I'm feeling to share with you, you know, just reading the words of Joshua ben Nun here, is that we need to prepare ourselves for the time of restoration. We need to live and we need to walk in the way of set apartness. And you know, if we do that, the signs and wonders that we are wondering to see with our own eyes, to experience with our own eyes, will follow us, because we are living according to the life that Yahuwah has put in front of us. Let's continue reading. It says, and Yahushua spoke to the priests, saying, take up the ark of the covenant and pass over before the people. So they took up the ark of the covenant and went before the people. And Yahuwah said to Yahushua, this day I begin to make you great before the eyes of all Israel, so that they know that I am with you as I was with Moshe. And you know, this is something so amazing as a promise to Yahushua ben Nun, that I think is a promise to all of us as well. That Yahuwah was promising Yahushua that he was going to make him great. And you know why it's so important? Because the whole purpose of Yahuwah to make Yahushua great is in order to put the fear in the hearts of the people, and not only the fear on the heart of the people, also in their enemies. And how Yahuwah was going to make Yahushua ben Nun great in front of the people is through the wonders and the signs of Yahuwah Elohim by his mighty right hand. But when I see this saying that so that they know that I am with you as I was with Moses, we see that there are two conditions in order for Yahuwah to make him great. And think on this, that what Yahuwah wants to do with us as well. We need to look for greatness? Not at all. Joshua ben Nun was not looking for greatness. And we studied this last week. You know, how Yahuwah chose Yahushua ben Nun, because his heart was toward Elohim. He wanted to be in his presence. You know, Yahushua ben Nun was not looking for greatness, but Yahuwah decided to make him great in front of the people. So, you know, Yahuwah most probably wants to make us great in front of the people as well. He wants to make his people great in front of the people, in front of the world, in order to put his fear in the hearts of the world. so the world can believe in him. But we don't need to look for greatness. There are two conditions in order for Yahuwah to give us that greatness. And let's look for the first condition. He's comparing that so that they know that I am with you as I was with Moses. So, how was Moses? Let's go to the book of Bemidbar. This is Numbers, chapter 12, verse 3. It says the following, and the man Moses, was very humble, more than all men who were on the face of the earth. Being humble before of Yahuwah is one of the conditions for him to consider us, to make us great in front of the world. We were discussing a minute ago is that the fear of Yahuwah was on the heart of the people because of the greatness of Yahuwah working through his servants. If we want to see the fear of Yahuwah in the hearts of the people of the world that are full of darkness today, we need to be in the same conditions and in the same spirit like Moses and Joshua ben Nun, being humble in order for Yahuwah to work through us with his wonders and his signs. And we see exactly the same in the words of Yahushua HaMashiach in the book of Matthew, chapter 11, verse 29, saying the following, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble in heart, and you shall find rest for your beings. So we need to imitate Yahushua HaMashiach. We need to have this spirit of humbleness. We need to be humble in front of Yahuwah. And even in the book of Proverbs, we see exactly the same. Let's go to the book of Proverbs, Mishle in Hebrew, chapter 3, verse 33 to 35. Says the following, the curse of Yahuwah is on the house of the wrong, but he blesses the home of the righteous. Remember, righteousness, keeping the commandment of Yahuwah, following the step of Yahushua and his testimony. He certainly scoffers, but gives favor to the humble. The wise do inherit esteem, but fools are bearing away shame. Being humble of spirit, following the righteousness of the kingdom of Yahuwah, being set apart to Yahuwah, is the way that Yahuwah will consider in order to make us great in this world, in the same way that he was doing it with Joshua ben Nun. But Yahushua was saying something in addition that is very important about who is going to be great in the kingdom. And this is, connected to everything that we have been sharing so far. Not only today, if not in the previous weeks as well. So let's go to the book of Matthew, chapter 5. And it's so nice when we see this, Yahushua himself answering the questions and connecting the dots of what we see in every portion. Chapter 5, verse 6 and 7. Not 5. Let me look for it. Because this is so important. What is written here is in the chapter 5, verse 18, 19. And we are going to read until 20th. It says the following, for truly I say to you, till the heaven and the earth pass away, one jot or one title shall by no means pass from the Torah till all be done. And listen, whoever then breaks one of the least of these commands and teaches men so, shall be called least in the rank of the heavens. But whoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great in the rank of the heavens. For I say to you that unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you should by no means enter into the rank of the heavens. So if we want to be great, we need to look to be great in the kingdom of Yahuwah. And how we're going to be great in the kingdom of Yahuwah? By teaching the commandments of Yahuwah. You see how everything is connected. Yahushua ben Nun was made great by Yahuwah in order for him to put the fear of Yahuwah in the hearts of the people, because he was humble and because he was leading the way of the people of Yahuwah, in the way of Yahuwah, in the commandments and the covenant of Yahuwah Elohim. If we want to be great in the kingdom of Yahuwah, Yahushua is leading us on exactly the same way, in order to be humble in spirit, in order to bring the truth of the Torah of Yahuwah to those that are willing to hear and have ears to hear. So important to keep this in our heart, to look for the righteousness, to look for the set apartness, to look for the way of Yahuwah, for the sign, guiding us on that way. Let's continue reading in the book of Joshua. By the end of the chapter 3, we see everything that was happening. And just to reinforce what I said in the verse 9 and 10, it says, "And Yahushua said to the children of Israel, Come near and hear the words of Yahuwah your Elohim. And Yahushua said, By this you shall know that the living El is in your midst, that he is certainly driving out from before you all the enemies." So we don't need to be afraid of those enemies, because Yahuwah will put the fear of him in their hearts. Yahuwah is guiding us on the way. We see so much reference here on in the verse 12, is that take for yourself 12 men from the tribes of Israel, 1 man from every tribe, and I will share a little bit about this in a minute. The priest bearing the Ark of the Covenant in order to guide the way, and this amazing miracle of Yahuwah cutting the river in order for them to cross the Jordan in dry land, in dry ground. This is so important and interesting and amazing that we need to guard in our hearts. But what I saw here that is so beautiful, and it is in the chapter 17, and also is written in the chapter 4, verse 1 on the book of Joshua, is the following. "And the priest bearing the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah stood firm on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan." And listen to this. "And all Israel passed over on dry ground until all the nation had completely passed over the Jordan." Let's read what is said in the chapter 4, verse 1. "And it came to be, when the entire nation had completely passed over the Jordan, that Yahuwah spoke to Yahushua, saying." So what we see here in these two passages is that what is in the heart of Yahuwah is that the entire nation of Israel, the 12 tribes, has to be saved. He wants the entire nation, all Israel, to cross the Jordan. He wants all of them to be saved. And this is so much connected to the second Exodus. It's so much connected to all the passages we have been reading so far. It's so connected to what's happening in this first crossing of the Jordan, that all the nation of Israel passed the Jordan, even the 2.5 tribes that inherited land beyond the Jordan. They were crossing with their brothers. We saw this last week, and also it's written here in the chapter 4. It says here in the verse 12 of chapter 4, "And the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and the half of the tribe of Manasseh passed over in fives before the children of Israel, as Moshe had spoken to them. About 40,000 armed ones of the army passed over before Yahuwah for battle to the desert plain of Jericho." So we see the entire nation crossing the Jordan in order to inherit and conquer the land, in order to destroy the enemies of Yahuwah, in order to inherit the promises. And this is so connected, as I said, to the second Exodus. It's so connected to what we see in different passages, also in the Brit Hadashah in the New Testament. And I want to bring two of them to you in the words of Paul, Shaul. Let's go to the book of Romans. Chapter 11, verse 25 and 27. And this is a beautiful chapter, read it entirely because it's talking about the two olive trees. There's so much information and the wisdom in the words of Paul in this chapter that it's always important to read it with time. So let's go to the chapter 25 to 27. And it says, "For I do not wish you to be ignorant of the secret, brothers, lest you should be wise in your own estimation, that hardening in part has come over Israel until the completeness of the nation has come in." When Shaul is talking about Israel and referring to Israel, here is talking about the current Israel known on that time. It was the house of Judah, the house of the south, the kingdom of the south. It was the Jews, the Yahudim. So hardening in part has come over the Yahudim until the completeness of the nations has come in. And we know this is talking about the recovery and the restoration of the 10 lost tribes of the house of Israel. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it has been written, "The deliverer shall come out of Zion, and he shall turn away the wickedness from Jacob. And this is my covenant with them, when I take away their sins." And we know that Yahushua HaMashiach, with his offering, he has removed our sins, and he has given us the opportunity to come back to the Father, to do teshuvah, to return to him, in order to walk in righteousness and kodeshah. And this is part of what Yahuwah has been doing throughout all these years in order to fulfill the completeness of the nations, in order to restore the house of Israel. With what purpose? As it is written here in the verse 26, in order for all Israel to be saved. And that's why I'm wondering if we are really going to cross the Jordan, literally. The entire people of Israel crossing once again, being saved by Yahuwah, by the hand of Yahushua HaMashiach. And in the book of Timothy, I think it's 1 Timothy chapter 2. Yes, chapter 2, verse 3, verse 4, it says the following: "For this is good and acceptable before Elohim, our Savior, who desires all men to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth." This is what is in the heart of Yahuwah. He wants to save everybody that put his heart on him. Everybody. He wants everybody to come to the knowledge of the truth. At the end is our decisions. At the end, as I was telling you before, is what we decide in our heart. If we want to follow his way, if we want to follow his life, he wants to follow his kingdom instead of following the world. We have been called out of the world. We are in the world, but we are not of the world. And this is so important, especially in these times that we are living, that, we are being so a small group if we compare to the entire population of the world who had decided to follow the way of Yahuwah. And he's sifting us. That's why we need to be prepared, prepare our hearts, because he's refining his people in these times. And the only way to endure until the end is to hold fast to the hand of Yahushua HaMashiach, who is leading the way, to put our feet in the rock and to follow the way of righteousness, understanding his Torah, his commandment, his covenant, that through Yahushua we are part of that covenant as well. That's the only way that we're going to endure until the end. Giving the heart to Yahuwah. So let's continue, If not, we're going to have another marathon today. Let's go to the chapter 4. And we're going to read it. And I'm going to share a few things that I saw in these two chapters, the additional things that I saw in these two chapters. That I think is speaking about the same, but is speaking to my heart first. And hoping Yahuwah will speak to your heart as well. So let's read it entirely, and then we are going to share these thoughts. In Joshua chapter 4. And it says, "And it came to be when the entire nation had completely passed over the Jordan, that Yahuwah spoke to Yahushua, saying, Take for yourselves 12 men from the people, 1 man from every tribe, and command them, saying, Take for yourselves 12 stones from here, out of the midst of the Jordan, from the place where the priest's feet stood firm, and you shall bring them in with you, and leave them in the camp in which you spend the night. And Yahushua called the 12 men, whom he had appointed from the children of Israel, 1 man from every tribe. And Yahushua said to them, Pass over before the ark of Yahuwah your Elohim into the midst of the Jordan, and each one of you take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, so that this shall be a sign in your midst when your children ask in time to come, saying, What do these stones mean to you? Then you shall answer them, and the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah. When it passed over the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. And these stones shall be for a remembrance to the children of Israel forever. And the children of Israel did so, as Yahushua commanded, and took up 12 stones from the midst of the Jordan, as Yahuwah had spoken to Yahushua, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, and took them over with them to their camp, and laid them down there. Yahushua also set up 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priest who bore the ark of the covenant stood, and they are there to this day. And the priests who bore the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan until every matter was finished that Yahuwah had commanded Yahushua to speak to the people, according to all that Moshe had commanded Yahushua. And the people hastened and passed over. And it came to be, when all the people had completely passed over, that the ark of Yahuwah and the priests passed over in the presence of the people. And the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and the tribe of Manasseh passed over in fives before the children of Israel, as Moshe had spoken to them. About 40,000 armed ones of the army passed over before Yahuwah for battle to the desert plains of Jericho. On that day Yahuwah made Yahushua great before the eyes of all Israel, and they feared him as they had feared Moshe all the days of his life. And Yahuwah spoke to Yahushua, saying, Command the priest who bear the ark of the witness, and let them come up from the Jordan. And Yahushua commanded the priest, saying, Come up from the Jordan. And it came to be, when the priest who bore the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah had come from the midst of the Jordan, that the soles of the priest's feet touched the dry land, and the waters of the Jordan returned to their place, and flowed over all its banks as before. And the people came up from the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they camped in Gilgal, on the east border of Jericho. And those 12 stones which they took out of the Jordan, Yahushua set up in Gilgal. And he said to the children of Israel, saying, When your children ask their father in time to come, saying, What are these stones? Then you shall let your children know, saying, Israel passed over this Jordan on dry land. For Yahuwah your Elohim dried up the waters of the Jordan before you until you had passed over, as Yahuwah your Elohim did to the sea of reeds, which he dried up before us until he had passed over, so that all the peoples of the earth shall know the hand of Yahuwah, that it is strong, so that you shall fear Yahuwah your Elohim forever. There's so much beautiful things in this chapter. You know, but few of them caught my attention, and I just want to share with you. We see these 12 stones that Yahuwah commanded Yahushua to take out of the river. He was instructed to choose 12 people from every tribe. You know, this is what we see between the verse 1 and verse 7. And you know, the intention was to have one rock for each one of the tribe of Israel. And there are so many references throughout the scriptures, in the breastplate of the Kohen Hagadol with the stones in the chest, with the 12 tribes of Israel, and so many others. We see this parallel and this pattern. But when I was reading this, it was impossible not to see in my mind the connection of Yahushua choosing the 12 disciples. And, we see that the intention of these 12 stones was to be a witness of the power and the compassion and the love of Yahuwah for the coming generations. And when we see these 12 stones and we think in the 12 disciples, there is an amazing promise to them that basically Yahushua was choosing them to start restoring the way of Yahuwah. That was the whole purpose of Yahushua. Christianity believes that Yahushua came to start a new religion. And they're so much away from the truth, because what Yahushua came was to restore the way of Yahuwah, the ancient path, in order to show the way back to Yahuwah Elohim. And he was choosing men, and he was choosing 12 men in order to be a kind of foundation of what he was building up, building the assembly of Yahuwah to restore the way back. And we see this amazing parallel with an amazing promise for those 12 that he chose back then in the last book of the scripture. So let's go there. Let's go to the book of Revelation. And we see how these stones are somehow representing the foundation of the temple of Yahuwah. Let's go to the chapter 21 of the book of Revelation, chapter 10, verse 14. And it says, "And he carried me away in the Ruach to a great and high mountain, and showed me the great city, the Kodesh Jerusalem, the set apart Jerusalem, descending out of the heaven from Elohim, having the stint of Elohim, and her light was like a most precious stone, like a jasper stone, clear and as crystal, and having a great and high wall, having 12 gates, and at the gates 12 messengers, and names written on them, which are those of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. 3 gates on the east, 3 gates on the north, 3 gates on the south, and 3 gates on the west." And listen to this. "And the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the names of the 12 emissaries of the Lamb." They are receiving, and they will receive such an amazing blessing. In the same way that we see Joshua ben Nun choosing 12 men in order to take 12 stones that could be representing foundation stones. We know that Yahushua is the cornerstone, the foundation of everything, and he started his ministry and his purpose with 12 men. That is going to be such a blessing that them being represented with 12 stones are going to be written their names in the Echal, in the temple of Yahuwah, in the wall as we see here. But it's not only that, The 12 stones representing being witnesses, representing the 12 tribes of Israel, being witnesses for the world. That it came to my mind the story of Elijah, that is written in the book of 1 King, Melachim Aleph in Hebrew. Let's go to 1 King, chapter 18. And this story, and it's so beautiful to read it once again all the time. And we're going to read only from verse 31 to verse 39. And this is Elijah, fighting with the prophets of Baal. And it is written here. Let's start in the verse 30. To verse 39. It says, Then Eliyahu, this is Elijah, said to all the people, Come closer to me. And all the people came closer to him. And he repaired the slaughtered place of Yahuwah that was broken down. Isn't this the same that Yahuwah has been doing through Yahushua HaMashiach, repairing the slaughtered place that was broken down? Yahushua has restored it and has been restoring it throughout the years until the completion of the times and the restoration of all things. And you know, this is an amazing parallel because what Elijah did is somehow, in my eyes, connected to what we see in this portion about the 12 stones being taken from the river. And it says, And Eliyahu took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of Yahuwah had come, saying, Israel is your name. And with the stones he built a slaughter place in the name of Yahuwah. It's the same that Yahushua HaMashiach did. He chose 12 stones in order to build the slaughter place of Yahuwah, in order to build once again the people of Yahuwah, the nation of Israel. Let's read it again. It says, And with the stone he built a slaughter place in the name of Yahuwah. And he made a trench around the slaughter place large enough to hold 2 sets of seats. And he arranged the wood and cut the bull in pieces and laid it on the wood and said, Fill 4 jars with water and pour it on the ascending offering and on the wood. Then he said, Do it a second time. And they did it a second time. And he said, Do it a third time. And they did it a third time. And the water flowed around the slaughter place, and he filled the trench with water too. You know, the correlation with the Jordan River, correlation with baptism, correlation of the 12 stones with everything that Yahushua started 2,000 years ago. And the water flowed around the slaughter place, and he filled the trench with water too. And it came to be at the time of bringing the evening offering that Eliyahu the prophet came near and said, Yahuwah Elohim of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Israel, let it be known today, you are Elohim in Israel, and I, your servant, have done all these matters by your word. Answer me, O Yahuwah, answer me, and let these people know that you are Yahuwah Elohim, and you shall turn their hearts back to you again. Then the fire of Yahuwah fell and consumed the ascending offering, and the wood, and the stones, and the dust, and it licked up the water that was in the trench. And all the people saw and fell on their faces and said, Yahuwah, He is the Elohim. Yahuwah, He is the Elohim. You know, the 12 stones here being an altar. With what purpose? To be a witness of Yahuwah. So for the world to understand that Yahuwah is Elohim. We see the 12 stones being taken out from the Jordan River in order to serve as a witness. You know, and the question that I have for me, starting first, and to you as well, and we have been talking about this in the last few weeks, we have been called out to be witnesses of Yahuwah in the same way that the 12 disciples were a witness of the word. In the same way, we see the 12 stones supposed to be a witness of the wonderful work of Yahuwah. In the same way, we see the 12 stones of the altar that Eliyahu created in order to serve as a witness of the great power of Yahuwah for the people to understand and see that Yahuwah is Elohim. So, are we being those witnesses? Yahuwah has chosen us in the same way that the 12 stones were chosen in order to be a witness. Are we being a witness of Yahuwah? And you know, there is a second beautiful picture in this, is that, can you imagine these 12 people receiving the commandment of Joshua ben Nun to take the stones of the river. I don't imagine that they were taking just small stones, because those stones supposed to serve as a witness, to be seen by many people throughout the generations. I think and I believe that they were taking heavy stones upon their shoulders. Can you imagine them being a witness, carrying over a heavy stone in their shoulder, walking in the river, and then taking the stones in order to get it into the place they were going to set it up? It wasn't an easy task. It was a heavy burden, but they were doing it anyways. They were doing it because they were chosen in order to be witness. So, even though that we are having heavy burdens here in our shoulders, we have been called in order to be witnesses for Yahuwah. No matter that we are going through difficulties, Yahushua said that everyone that wants to follow me, take up your stake, deny yourself, and follow me. Can you imagine Yahushua carrying the stake, carrying that cross? It wasn't an easy task, but he endured until the end because he wanted to witness the power of Yahuwah Elohim, the power of his Father. So, we're sometimes tired of the way because it's not an easy one, because everything that is surrounding us is making it difficult. We need to remember that even these 12 men that were chosen in order to take these rocks to be witness, they were having a heavy burden. But we have an amazing Mashiach that he is helping us to take that burden in order to help us to move on the way. He received help in order to carry the stake. And he endured until the end. He is the one helping us now in order to be those witnesses, in order to take the witnesses that Yahuwah had put in our hearts and to set it with the purpose for the people to see and for the people to believe that Yahuwah is Elohim. What I see, and before that, I do believe that here in Joshua chapter 4, we see an amazing timing that somehow could be a key for us to understand the timings of the second Exodus. We see in the chapter 19 is that the people came out from the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they camped in Gilgal on the east border of Jericho. We know that this is fully connected to Pesach. It was in the 10th day of the first month that when they needed to select the lamb that was going to be slaughtered as the Pesach lamb in the 14th day. And we know that in all that time is when Yahuwah decided to bring out the people of Israel from Egypt. Isn't that amazing that they crossed the Jordan in the same period of time? Isn't that amazing that they crossed the Jordan in the day that they needed to select the lamb? Isn't this maybe a picture of Israel being selected by Yahuwah, being chosen by Yahuwah? And this is also somehow connected. It's not totally clear when we read in the book of John that it's very close, and maybe was the time when the Yahushua HaMashiach entered Jerusalem for the Feast of Pesach. So there is something there that is showing us the timing when things will happen. And it's my belief so far. And if we have the time in some moment, maybe we are going to be able to study about the second Exodus and the timings. That during that time, things will happen. We need to be attentive. During Pesach, during Moedim, we know that things happen during Moedim. That's specifically second Exodus happening in the same time frame. I think is something that we are able to see here in this portion as well. But last thing that I have to share with you all today that, for For me, it was so beautiful to see it. Is the connection of the Yarden, connection of the priest, bearing the Ark of the Covenant, the connection with the Ruach Kodesh. And before going specifically to the point, I want to share a passage that we see a similar thing happening. And with this, you are going to start seeing what I saw and what I feel to share with you. We see connection of Israel crossing the Jordan, going to Gilgal. We see the connection of the presence of Yahuwah being before the children of Israel in the Jordan. And after the children of Israel has been passing over and crossing the Jordan, the Ark of the Covenant with the presence of Yahuwah going up. Multiple references and multiple points. And we know that the next portion is related to they were going to conquer Jericho, the first city they were conquering. And there's an amazing story that is reflecting exactly the same places and the same situation. And it's showing us something that is so important, that is connected to something even more important. And we will read it together. This is in the book of 2 Kings, Melachim Bet, chapter 2. And this is the story of Eliyahu, Elijah, and Elisha in Hebrew. And this is so amazing because it's connected exactly with what we have been reading this chapter 3 and chapter 4 of the book of Joshua. So let's read it together. And it says, "And it came to be, when Yahuwah was to take up Eliyahu to the heavens by a whirlwind, that Eliyahu went with Elisha," this is Elisha, "from Gilgal." Listen, they were in Gilgal. So they were walking out from Gilgal in this story. And Eliyahu said to Elisha, "Please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me on to Bethel." And Elisha said, "As Yahuwah lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you." And they went down to Bethel. And the sons of the prophets who were at Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, Do you know that Yahuwah is taking away your master from your head?" And he said, "I also know. Be silent." And Eliyahu said to him, "Elisha, please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me on to Jericho." And he said, "As Yahuwah lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you." And they came into Jericho. And the sons of the prophets who were at Jericho came to Elisha and said to him, Do you know that Yahuwah is taking away your master from over you today?" And he said, "I also know. Be silent." And Eliyahu said to him, "Please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me on to the Jordan." And he said, "As Yahuwah lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you." And the two of them went on. Remember, they came from Gilgal to the Jordan. The children of Israel, at the moment they went out of the Jordan, they went to Gilgal. So it's like they are walking in the opposite direction. And this is, for me, something so interesting and so amazing. Let's continue reading. "And 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood facing them at a distance, while the two of them stood by the Jordan. And listen, and Eliyahu took his mantle and rolled it up and struck the water, and it was divided this way and that, so that the two of them passed over on dry ground." Isn't the story repeating itself in the opposite direction? Why? Why this was happening? In the same way we see here the children of Israel crossing the Jordan, with the priests being the one going first to the water in order for the water to be cut off, in order for them to cross in a dry ground. We see here Eliyahu and Elisha doing exactly the same. But here, Eliyahu taking his mantle in order for the miracle to happen once again. Let's continue reading. "And it came to be, when they had passed over, that Eliyahu said to Elisha, Ask what I am to do for you before I am taken away from you." And Elisha said, please, let a double portion of your spirit, your ruach, be upon you. And let me stop here before I forget. You know, Eliyahu was crossing the Jordan to the plain of Moab, and he was going to be taken up to the heaven. He's saying this. Who else was taken up to a high mountain in order to see the land of the inheritance of Israel? And he died there. Was Moshe. I don't know what it is, but I see something important in there, in the correlation and the parallels between Moses and Elijah. And it's so interesting that even it was the two of them that appeared to Yahushua HaMashiach in the Mount of Transfiguration, in a high mountain. It's something important happening there. I don't know what it is, and we're required to study and understand even better and ask Abba to give us understanding. But it's because of something that they needed to cross the Jordan for Eliyahu, to be taken up by Yahuwah. So, you know, all of this is happening, and what Elisha was asking, please let a double portion of your spirit be upon me. He was asking for the ruach of Yahuwah to be upon him. And he said, the verse 10, and he said, you have made it hard to ask. Yet, if you see me when I am taken from you, it is yours. But if not, it is not. To put our eyes to the goal, not to deviate our focus and our attention to what is important in life, the kingdom of Yahuwah, His righteousness. To put our eyes in Mashiach. You know, you see the correlation of Eliyahu and Mashiach as well here. Mashiach, Yahushua, promised to send a helper, promised to send the Ruach HaKodesh. You know, if we seek and we ask for the Ruach, He is giving us the Ruach HaKodesh. In the same way that Elisha was asking Eliyahu. But we need to, in order to do that, we need to put our eyes to Yahushua, to the way, to the truth, to the life, to the righteousness and the kingdom of Yahuwah. So let's continue. And it came to be, as they continue on and spoke, that see, a chariot of fire with horses of fire, which separated the two of them. And Eliyahu went up in a whirlwind into the heavens. And Elisha saw it, and he cried out, my father, the chariot of Israel and its horsemen. And he saw him no more. Then he took hold of his garment and tore them into 2 pieces. And he took up the mantle of Eliyahu that had fallen from him, and went back and stood by the bank of the Jordan. And here the story repeats once again, with the servant of Yahuwah having the Ruach of Yahuwah, in the same way that the presence of Yahuwah was on the Ark of the Covenant in order to produce the miracle, in order for them to cross. Here, the Ruach HaKodesh being in the life of the servant of Yahuwah, Elisha, because he was seeking it. He is going to do exactly the same that we see in this portion. And he took the mantle of Eliyahu that had fallen from him, and struck the water, and said, where is Yahuwah Elohim of Eliyahu? And he struck the water, and it was divided this way and that. And Elisha passed over. And when the sons of the prophets who were from Jericho saw him, they said, the Ruach of Eliyahu rests on Elisha. And they came to meet him and bowed to the ground before him. So, the connection with the presence of Yahuwah, the connection with the Ruach of Yahuwah being upon us. And you know, the picture of the priest. And this is a beautiful picture, you know. We know that was the priest that went taking the Ark of the Covenant, leading the people. And we see a picture so wonderful when we go to the book of Matthew, chapter 3. Let's read from 1 to 6. And it says the following. And in those days, Jehohanan, John the Immerser, came proclaiming in the wilderness of Yehuda, and saying, Repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near. For this is he who was spoken of by the prophet Yeshayahu Isaiah, saying, A voice of one crying in the wilderness, Prepare the way of Yahuwah, make his path straight. And Jehohanan had a garment of camel's hair, and leather girdle around his waist, and his food was locusts and wild honey. Then Jerusalem and all Yehuda and all the country around the Jordan went out to him, and they were immersed by him in the Jordan, confessing their sins. We know when we study in the book of Luke, we know that John the Baptist, Jehohanan the Immerser, he was a son of a Kohen, a priest. Jehohanan himself, John himself, was a priest. And he was baptizing the people in the Jordan. I'm wondering, and it's in my heart, maybe I'm wrong, but it's in my heart that most probably they were baptizing in the same place where Israel crossed the Jordan. That maybe we're baptizing in the same place where Eliyahu and Elisha crossed the Jordan as well. They were baptizing, he was baptizing in the same place where the Kohanim, the priest, were stood with the Ark of the Covenant in order for the miracle to happen. A priest, John the Baptizer, John the Baptist, Jehohanan the Immerser, standing once again in the Jordan. With what purpose? In order to preach repentance, in order to show the people the way back to Yahuwah, in the same way that the priests with the Ark of the Covenant were showing the people the way they needed to walk. And it's not only that. If we go and let's continue reading in the verse 13. Then Yahushua came from Galilee to Jehohanan at the Jordan to be immersed by him. But Jehohanan, John was hindering him, saying, I need to be immersed by you, and you come to me? But Yahushua answered and said to him, Permit it now, for thus it is fitting for us to feel all righteousness. Then he permitted him. And having been immersed, Yahushua went up immediately from the water, and see, the heavens were opened, and he saw the Ruach of Elohim descending like a dove and coming upon him. And see, a voice out of the heavens saying, This is my Son, the beloved, in whom I delight. We see two priests here in the life of John the Baptist and Yahushua HaMashiach being in the Jordan in order to show the way of Yahuwah, in order to show the children of Israel the way back to Yahuwah Eloheinu. And we see the Ruach of Elohim in the same way we see in the story of Eliyahu and Elisha, connected to all of this and being descending upon Mashiach. This is a beautiful picture. Even Yahuwah saying, This is my Son. Remember, when they were coming out was in the 10th day of the first month, when the Lamb was selected. It's a picture for all of us that we have been chosen by Yahuwah Elohim, that the Ruach of Yahuwah needs to be within us in order to understand what's the way that Yahushua is leading us. And we see the most important picture of the priests, that they were showing the way. But now we see our amazing Kohen HaGadol, Yahushua HaMashiach, standing once again in the Jordan with another priest, showing us the way back to Yahuwah, showing us, for all of us, the children of Israel, for the entire nation, in the same way that the entire nation crossed the Jordan, in this portion, for the entire nation of Israel after the second grand exodus to cross the Jordan once again. Brothers and sisters, I think what Yahuwah wants to do with us is so wonderful. It's just a matter for us to give our heart to Him, to believe in His words, to believe on what we have been receiving from Him all these years. If Yahuwah has decided to take you out of the world and take me out of the world, we need to prepare our hearts and we need to prepare ourselves in order to be used in the way He wants to use us. I want to cross the Jordan. I know you want to cross the Jordan too. And this portion is giving us the strength and the conviction we need in order to be prepared to cross that Jordan once again. It's Yahushua HaMashiach, the one who took our hand, is the one that is leading us on the way. No matter the enemies that we can see in front of us, He is giving us the strength. We need to put our eyes in the banner. We need to put our eyes in the Ark of the Covenant. We need to put our eyes in Yahushua HaMashiach. And we need to seek for the Ruach in the same way that Elisha was asking for the Ruach in order to receive the Ruach HaKodesh, in the same way that Yahushua HaMashiach received the Ruach in the Jordan, in order to be able to cross the Jordan, in order to feel and fulfill our purpose. I think that's the calling that Yahuwah is giving to me first. It's also inviting you in these days to be that set apart people, to be that peculiar people, and to endure until the end. Brothers and sisters, thank you so much for joining me today. I have nothing else to share. You know, Yahuwah is always wonderful to all of us. And I hope this is being a blessing to all of you. I hope to see you in the next week, in next Virtual House Church. We're going to go back to the regular time. You know, we started later today because of the Memorial of Rov. But, you know, keep these studies in your heart. You know, this is the time to be strong on the Word. All of us are students. We have our Rabbi, Yahushua HaMashiach. We can make mistakes all the time. We make mistakes all the time. But we need to be humble when we understand that we are understanding something in the wrong way, to be corrected by Yahuwah. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Ask for wisdom. Study the Word in order to receive the courage, in order to receive the strength in these times of trouble. It's the time for us to seek the Word of Yahuwah, to seek the Ruach of Elohim, in order to endure until the end. You know, amazing things Yahuwah will do with us. We have been reading many of them today. Amazing and wonderful things Yahuwah will do with His people, Israel. And you and me are His people, Israel. We are the remnant that Yahushua HaMashiach has been rescuing. So let's be prepared. Let's be set apart. Let's seek righteousness. Let's keep the commandment of Yahuwah. Let's follow the step of Yahushua. Let's keep the way of righteousness and the way of Kodeshah. And Yahuwah will do wonders to us in order for the world to understand that Yahuwah is Elohim. So, once again, thank you so much. I hope in Yahuwah you will have a wonderful end of Shabbat today. You will have a wonderful Shavua, a wonderful week. And like always, we're going to finish this portion today with the Aaronic blessing. I hope this is going to bless all of you, and in this coming week. Thank you so much, and Yahuwah be with you.
יברכך יהוה Yahuwah ve'yishmerecha. Ya'er Yahuwah panav lecha v'chuneka. Yisa Yahuwah panav lecha ve'yaseh lecha shalom. Yisa Yahuwah panav lecha ve'yaseh lecha shalom. Ve'yaseh lecha shalom. Ve'yaseh lecha shalom.
Yahuwah bless you and keep you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.
Yahuwah te bendiga y te guarde. Yahuwah haga resplandecer su rostro en ti y tenga de ti compasión. Yahuwah alce su rostro sobre ti y te dé paz, te dé paz, te dé
Shabbat Shalom. See you next week, and Yahuwah be with you all.